Hi there, I'm Allison Moon and welcome to day 31 of 90 Days of Self-Publishing. Today I'm going to reach into my mailbag to pull out an email from Mark of a really awesomely named website, markeology.com. He had a question for me about printing and getting my printed books into bookstores. This is a really great question. So I'm using Lightning Source to print. Basically they are a large printer and they have a built-in distribution cycle that I really enjoy. They do both offset and print on demand. I'm doing print on demand because offset requires large investments up front of just capital that I just don't have. Although I like the idea of having an offset book, I'm probably gonna have to save that for the sequel if it's catchy enough, if it feels like it makes sense in the investment. So there's that. And so I'm using them as a POD, and you can get POD books into bookstores. It's just a little bit more complicated. One way I can do it is because Lightning Source offers a really great distribution package, which basically means that I'm put into that big catalog that bookstores and libraries go through when they want to stock their shelves. So I'm in the catalog already by going through Lightning Source, which is a big boon. That means that anybody can walk into any bookstore in America or Australia or Britain and order my book, and the bookstore will be able to provide that. That's great for people who use bookstores. Unfortunately, not a lot of people use bookstores. Most stuff is still on the web, but I like the idea of people being able to walk into a bookstore and order the book. Oftentimes, when a bookstore orders a book, they'll order another one to stock on the shelves because they know there's at least some moderate interest. So that's one way to get on a shelf. Another way is consignment, actually. And a lot of bookstores, now that they're getting hip to the fact that people are self-publishing, and they're self-publishing some pretty good books, they're offering shelf space on consignment. Now, this isn't everywhere. This isn't something that a lot of people do, but it basically requires you to walk into a bookstore, introduce yourself to the buyer, and tell them that you want them to stock your book on consignment. Now, it does make things a little bit more complicated because you get paid after they sell the books, and now you have, like, how many bookstores you've got. You're managing, stock for, 25 places. But it is a great thing to do if you want to get your books on shelves. So there are a lot of bookstores that I've already done. Like whenever I see a bookstore in the neighborhood, I just walk in and say, hey, like, do you take books on consignment? If so, like, who can I email? So I'm going to be doing that a lot. There are some bookstores that I just would really like to be in, particularly places where I can be local and I can have a little local author sticker and I can sign the books. And that will make it just a little bit more appealing and make me feel a little bit, it is kind of an ego thing, but it's also like I want to be, for people who like to browse bookshops to be able to find my book. So that's that reason, and that's pretty much the best way to go. Unless somebody orders, there aren't going to be many people who are going to just buy my book from the stock of the catalog. But there are some feminist bookstores that I intend to call. There are some gay and lesbian bookstores that I'd like to call up, and there's some science fiction and fantasy bookstores that are specific. So I think that that's really great. But it really is about kind of old-fashioned personal relationships and meeting people and asking them to carry your book and offering to do signings for them and stuff. This is really kind of back to the old school way of doing it, and it's probably not going to be the most obviously lucrative format for me. I'm sure that most of my books will get sold on the web, but there's just something special for me about walking into a bookstore and finding a book that you take home and fall in love with, and I want to be able to offer that experience to some people. So that's it. I hope that answered your question. Again, if you ever have any questions for me, feel free to email me at moon@talesofthepack.com, and thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow.